Hello and welcome to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. War and rumors of war, Syria and North Korea, Russia-U.S. relations at rock bottom, and how reliable are the French polls? Does Le Pen have a chance? Cross-talking wars and rumors of war. I'm joined by my guest here in Moscow, Dmitry Babich. He's a political analyst with Sputnik International. We also have Alexander Domrin. He is a professor of law at the Higher School of Economics. And we have Xavier Moreau. He is the founder of the Center of Political Strategic Analysis, Stratpol. All right, gentlemen, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I always appreciate it. Dima, the outcome of the now not so famous, or not even, maybe even infamous now, summit between the United States and Russia that was held in Moscow. We're hearing, because usually the Kremlin will put out a synopsis of the conversation that the guest had, in this case Tillerson, and he spoke with Putin. That is not to be found on the Kremlin website, which is rather odd. I hear it was a rather contentious conversation.
Well, it was, of course, an unpleasant conversation, but please notice, despite the fact that the United States bombed a sovereign country, you know, that Syrian airbase, despite Tillerson not very polite words, him giving us advice on our interest in dumping us.
Yeah, the West loves to tell what Russia's best interests are.
Exactly. Tillerson was still received by President Putin. They had a talk. You know, he was received by the foreign minister. There were no rude words from the Russian side. And in this way, you can see who wants the dialogue and who wants to block the dialogue. Russia desperately wants a dialogue. Not because we're weak, but because this is in everyone's interest and the situation is getting really dangerous.
I think, you know, to pick up with what Dima is saying here, is that the Russian side desperately wants to have dialogue because they don't have a clue what the other side is talking about. We have so many people in the Trump administration now trumpeting different ideas. And I'm sorry, Dima, but we didn't get a clear answer from Mr. Tillerson.
Well, that's what Lavrov has been saying. Please formulate, what are your interests? When were you lying? When you said that we are not fighting Assad, we are fighting ISIL? Or when you said that Assad has to go?
We'll get to that in a second, because I got a great quote here. Go ahead, Alexander.
Well, from the very beginning, when I heard this comparison between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, that was during the electoral campaign, that Hillary is predicted, Trump is unpredicted. My answer was that, listen, she is so predicted that it's not a good choice for America or for Russia. Trump is unpredicted. It has both possible negative and positive sides.
Well, it's negative because by definition you don't know what he's going to say, and he's proven this so far in his very young presidency.
You know, the French MP Thierry Mariani told that Putin should be granted by the Nobel Prize of Patience. And I think, again, he's a wise man surrounded by hysterical president and partners.
The Russians love that term, yeah.
Generally, for the image of Russia and of Vladimir Putin, it's a good sequence, in my opinion.
You know, one thing, Dima, you know, I said this earlier on Crosstalk last week, is that maybe the only upside, and this may sound a little bit strange, is that because we are at rock bottom, maybe that's an indication where we can start moving up ever so slowly, because we all know that the Democrats and the mainstream media said that any kind of contact that Trump would have with the Russians would be selling out. But I mean, the optics of that summit certainly can't convey that, you know, that there's some kind of collusion anymore.
Well, of course, it's a disappointment that this visit by Mr. Tillerson to Moscow, which had been anticipated for so many months,
and it was positively anticipated.
The fact that it is taken place, or that it took place in such negative circumstances, that is very, very unfortunate. But what was the alternative? I mean, the liberal media in Russia and in the West, they have been hysteric about that. Ah, Russia, you wanted to elect Trump, now you see what he's doing to you. Well, I mean, Hillary Clinton, hours before Trump's strike against Syria, said, I'm quoting her, I think that his airfields, Assad's airfields, should be bombed so that he could not harm his own people. So basically, Russia had no choice. They were both persons of war. Okay. Hillary Clinton and Trump, but the only difference is that Hillary Clinton is a person of war with support from the Congress. Right. Trump is a person of war with support from the Congress if he bombs someone. Right. In other cases, there is no support from the Congress.
Let me read something here from Thomas Friedman, a writer for the New York Times that, in my approximation, has never gotten anything right about anything. But this is about Syria here. Let me quote here. We could simply back off fighting territorial ISIS in Syria and make it entirely a problem for Iran, Russia, Hezbollah, and Assad. After all, they're the ones overextended in Syria, not us. Make them fight a two-front war, the moderate rebels on one side and ISIS on the other. If we defeat territorial ISIS in Syria now, we will only reduce the presence of Assad, Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah, and enable them to devote all their resources to crushing the last moderate rebels in Idlib, not sharing power with them. That's assuming that there are moderates, rebels, this phantom here. No, it's saying we should fight with ISIS, okay? Yeah. After everything that has happened in Europe and everything that's happened in this horrific proxy civil war where most of the rebel fighters are foreigners here. This is going back to Assad must go.
Yeah, actually, if you read the French newspapers and the narrative is that Assad created ISIS. Yeah. Okay.
Just like Saddam created Al-Qaeda.
Yes, so the idea is we have to fight together ISIS and Assad. And so the good are the Idlib rebels, who are Al-Qaeda actually, So
who probably were involved in this false flag chemical
incident.
Exactly.
No, they already did it. It's not the first time. It's always the same scenario since 1991. Okay, false concentration camps, false massacres, false news.
Last doctor, last school, last bakery.
Some children dying, and it's exactly always the same. So we are aware
Pictures
about
at the United Nations Security Council.
I wonder, if the United States is so abhorred by chemical attacks, why did it support Iraq in the 80s when Iraq definitely used chemical weapons against Iran?
You can go back further, Agent Orange in Vietnam, okay?
They did not have any qualms
about it. The U.S. is no stranger to using chemical weapons.
Absolutely. They did not have any qualms about it. Reagan was not investigated for supporting Saddam Hussein against Iran. And remember that other chemical attack in 2013, why was there no investigation? When chemical weapons were used against the Kurds in Iraq, again in the late 80s, more or less we know who did it. There was this chemical Ali who finally had to pay a price for it. It's impossible to hide a real chemical attack. So if they don't want to investigate, I mean the West doesn't want to investigate, that means they want to hide something.
It also means, if I can go to you here, I mean, how can you sell this line that we should be backing ISIS? I mean, the president, we had a candidate, Trump, we had a president-elect candidate, a president-elect Trump, we have a President Trump. We must fight ISIS and destroy it. And we come across the board, all of his generals, all of his cabinet, they're all waffling right now. This is really extraordinary.
It always disappoints me. I used to teach in America. I used to teach at 10 different American universities, mainly at law schools. I got my doctorate in America. America pretends to be a country based on the rule of law, pretends to be a law-governed state. And you see, in all these discussions, not a single word about international law.
It's really interesting is when you look about, first of all, everyone is praising as if it was some kind of art, the bombing of those tomahawks. It was really, it shows a lot of moral degradation in the media here. But Alexandra is right here. You never, ever come across the mainstream media, the legality of it. I mean, now there's talk of putting 50,000 American troops, boots on the ground, against international law. Never once is it mentioned.
But the first Gulf War and Afghanistan, all the U.S. war of Western wars since the 1991 are not legally on the point of view of the international law. Okay, everything is illegal. What they did in Yugoslavia during 10 years, what they did in Iraq during the Second World War, what they are doing now is illegal. Okay.
And that's exactly what disappoints me. Not just the US government doesn't raise this question of legality. Americans don't want even to hear about who the hell gave you this right to start bombing another sovereign country.
Can you, just to compare, can you imagine when the Ukrainian army or the Nazi battalions killed Ukrainian and Russian children in Donbass? If Russia sent 60 caliber missiles, on Ukraine, what should have been the reaction?
It's against international law.
Of course. So the US had the right, but the Russian, of course, couldn't have such a right.
Well, I already despaired. Any pretense at legality is out of the question here. But even from the purely human point of view, these moderate rebels in Syria, I heard that they were compared in the internet, they are compared to a unicorn. This is something that everyone talks about, everyone writes about, but no one has seen a unicorn, right?
It's a fiction.
Show me a moderate Syrian rebel,
And show him to me on American TV.
and
so they're called the White Helmets, okay? They're the White Helmets.
In the United States, Trump's ratings are up after his bombing of Syria. They are even higher up after that mother of all bombs was dropped in Afghanistan.
It's very interesting, though. And this will be played out here. Is that, again, going back to that conversation that President Putin had with Secretary Tillerson, is that my sense is, I don't have evidence, my gut tells me, Putin told him, don't do it again. And the frequency of American flights now have gone down dramatically. Well, let's not read too much into it, but the thing is that they do have to listen here. Okay, they definitely
Let's hope, because unfortunately, even if you look at the situation from the position of public opinion, say in Afghanistan, what would be your reaction if you knew that someone dropped on your country, with whatever motives, the bomb that kills everything living in the radius of 20 miles?
Using the most powerful non-nuclear bomb on one of the poorest countries in the world. Really extraordinary. Gentlemen, I'm going to jump in here. We're going to go to a short break. And after that short break, we'll continue our discussion on war and rumors of war. Stay with our team. Welcome back to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. To remind you, we're discussing war and rumors of war. Okay, let me go to Alexander on the North Korea issue. I was really dismayed, but of course, although I'm always dismayed with Western media coverage of international relations, this whole media storm about North Korea. Anyone that's been watching the simmering conflict over the last few decades, it's almost an annual event. North Korea wants to remind the world that don't forget about us, we're still here. A country that is very much sanctioned by the United States and its allies. It is surrounded by a vast armada of military forces. There are 23,000 American troops in South Korea. The Korean War is not over, gentlemen. It's still going on. And their major demand is to sit down and write a peace treaty. The United States refuses to do that and will not do one-on-one here. The media made it sound like we were at the abyss of war, and I think that was grossly irresponsible. But what do you expect? How do you see what's going on?
What we see from North Korea, actually we have seen it for many years, demonstration of power. Demonstration of power. I remember my country back in the 1990s when Russia...
And your country was the Soviet Union, okay.
After disintegration of the Soviet Union, back in the Yeltsin's years, we lost all power, we had nothing to demonstrate. Demonstration of power is just fine, and that's what Korea does. Intimidation is a different thing, and from a legal point of view, a threat to use force is exactly a violation of international law. Korea doesn't threat anybody. America comes closer to Korea to intimidate North Korea, and actually to use this threat, to use force. And that's the main difference between North Korea and the United States of America. So from a legal point of view, what Korea does? Well, just to remind of itself.
To remind. Xavier, one of the most important thing is that the North Korean regime under the Kim family, they have, I was going to say top priority. No, they have one priority: survival.
Yes, of course. No, I couldn't agree more with what you said. I would like to remind that Seoul is at 30 kilometers from
the DMZ.
Yeah, so it could be destroyed in one shot. If North Korea want to destroy U.S. citizens, they just go to kick on the Japan territory. So, in my opinion, it won't happen anything again.
Because, Dima, common sense. Every once in a while we got to mention common sense here. If North Korea were to use forces, air, missile, artillery, to start a conflict with one of its enemies, a good part of South Korea would be incinerated within a few hours. That is something that they're not going to calculate. They're not. The thing is that Kim is a madman. No, he's not. This regime has survived a long time with hostile forces around it. They know how to survive. They're not they're not mad. They're not insane. Okay. I mean, when Donald Trump announced to his Chinese guest in Mar-a-Lago that U.S. had sent tomahawks into Syria, I wonder if President Xi had to say, "Is this guy unhinged?" Because it's against international law. Number one, there's something the Chinese are very cognizant of. Go ahead.
Well, I think that certainly the Kim family is not insane. It has never been insane, but it's a part of the American mythology that, we're out there to kill the white whales. We're out there to find the mad leaders whom we're going to bring to justice. Well, I think it was mad on Trump's part to first to bomb Syria with a
Chinese guest
right next to him, and second, I think Trump is simply wrong if he thinks that China would force Kim Jong-un to do what he, Trump, wants him to do. Because for China, North Korea is their deterrent against the real madman, against the United States. Thanks to North Korea, 2 out of 6 American aircraft carriers, active aircraft carriers, they are always constantly near the North Korean shore. So 30% of the American naval forces is locked by North Korea. China relishes this circumstance. China may not like the North Korean regime.
Of course.
Unlike China,
and even Trump admitted it, President Xi, that he told me he doesn't have that much influence. Well, anyone studying the Northeast Asia would already know that.
My understanding is that China, their vision is the following. Okay, we did it. We opened to the world. We have entered the globalized economy. North Korea did another thing, economically they did worse than us, but militarily no one knows how much force North Korea really has. How powerful are their weapons?
It's definitely a militarized society.
But that's their strong point,
the worst nightmare, the worst nightmare for the Chinese would be if the North Korean regime collapsed, because that would be a signal where South Korea, there would be some kind of unification, and they would have American troops on China's border, like American troops on Russia's border as we speak. Go ahead.
Actually, it's true, and I think one of the results of this policy is that for a sovereign country, it's better to have nuclear weapons. Because because nothing will happen.
Learned the lesson of Gaddafi,
of Milosevic,
and of Saddam.
You know why nothing will happen in North Korea? Because they have nuclear weapon, so they can destroy 20,000 U.S. military in Japan if they want. And so the result of this stupid U.S. politics is that policy is that everybody.
Then that begs the point. What is this all about? Is this for American domestic consumption? Because all of you have been speaking a lot of sense here. Okay.
Mainly for domestic consumption. That's number one. Because Trump has now been popular, and then he's losing popularity even more. But I see a direct parallel between this event, when the leader of China was sitting next to the American president, and the American president began bombing Syria, and 1999, when Prime Minister of Russia, Primakov, was flying to America. That's right.
And he turned it around.
Yes, and well, it was a plan. But Primakov would be standing next to Al Gore when America begins bombing Yugoslavia. And there was this famous U-turn over the Atlantic, which was basically the end of even possible talk.
Rapprochement came to an end.
We are back to the 2007 speech, Putin speech.
In Munich.
Okay, there is one international actor, superpower, which doesn't respect international law. And it's always the same. But you were talking about demonstration of power. But actually there is on both sides. Of course, on the North Korean side, as usual, but this time as well from the US side. And but in my opinion, the big loser of the situation is Trump. Because in 3 weeks, we will know that nothing has changed in Syria. Assad is winning. Nothing has changed in North Korea. Right. It will be as usual. So the big loser of this situation, when everything will be more quiet, will be Trump.
You just mentioned winners and losers.
Yes.
Let's go to the French election here. You know, one of the things, I'm not an expert in French election, on French politics, but one of the things that really caught my eye in looking at the upcoming presidential election is that what is it exactly? Over a third of the citizenry haven't decided who they're going to vote for.
40%.
40%. Okay. All right. And we have the precedent of Brexit. We have Trump, and the polling agencies are. Well, they're kind of calling the race. They're saying, for sure, Le Pen's going to lose, Dima.
Well, I think a lot of people have decided how they will vote.
But they haven't told pollsters?
They don't want to tell it, the pollsters, because the pressure on the voters in the United States was terrible in 2016. But in France, it is even greater, because the Le Pen family has been demonized by the French media for decades, I heard...
But they're still standing.
They're still standing simply because their enemies are so bad. Not because Le Pen and his daughter are so good, because the enemies are so bad. And all kinds of dirty tricks were used. I had my French friends telling me that Marine Le Pen was probably insane since her childhood, because when she went to school, she heard her classmates saying, your father is a fascist.
Anti-Semite.
And anti-Semite. The dirty trick used against François Fillon was terrible, because the same things were done by other French and American politicians. He had his wife working for him.
It's legal.
Well,
it's legal. There is nothing illegal in.
Yes, but I just wanted to finish. They started to investigate if she really worked for that magazine that she supposedly worked for. Well, what is Henry Kissinger doing on the board of directors of telecommunication companies, financial? Does he understand anything? He's not doing anything, right?
We can, I don't know why we hold up politicians up to some kind of moral pedestal. I'm interested in politics. I'm interested in policy, and I'm in what government is supposed to do for people here. Is this just change the subject? Is this what this is? Just change the subject?
What happened against François Fillon is a colored revolution. Because
within French politics.
Yes, exactly. Because 3 months ago, he was sure to be the winner of the French election after the primaries of the
Almost no doubt.
And they created a story completely false, and using this famous attack, corruption, money. But François Fillon has the best political program.
That never happens in Western politics. Oh my goodness!
It's exactly the same. When I look at what happened with Navalny, he has no alternative economical program.
Navalny, let's say, tell our viewers who it is. But Navalny is the West's favorite opposition figure in Russia.
Yes. So I just want to compare that. François Fillon has a very well done program. Complete. It's very a great program in my opinion. Okay, I'm Fillon supporter. I must confess.
Wear your stripes.
But nobody wants him to talk about his program. So they're going to throw some accusation of corruption, which is completely stupid when you know François Fillon. Okay, and exactly the same with Navalny against Medvedev, because you are not agree with the policy of Medvedev. What's your alternative? Marxism, ultraliberalism, anyway, anything. But Navalny...
Colored revolution.
Yeah, and so there is a fight against corruption. And it's always the same in Macedonia, in France.
I'm sorry, we have to end here, but the whole system is corrupt, okay? Democracy itself is corrupt all across the West world. Dima, we could talk on this subject for a long time. We've run out of time. Many thanks to my guests here in Moscow, and thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, crosstalk rules.
It's will not I love it.